So this is a video unboxing HSP's exhaust manifolds. I actually got them yesterday, and yeah, I opened up the box. Mike from HSP sent me out a pretty badass hat and some new decals that they got. So I did already open these, but I'm just going to open them again because they're getting installed today. So when they send them out, they send them pretty well wrapped up. Got a bunch of paper in the box that pretty much covers everything. And then they were wrapped in this white paper, but like I said, I already opened them up. So come with some cool decals. They come with PPE exhaust manifold gaskets. I think HSP should make their own gaskets, but you know what? PPE is still the best out there, so not complaining, but HSP parts are the best. They should have their own gaskets, and I think they're going to wind up doing it at some point, but here's what they look like. So, nice box design, nice welded, heavy. They give you Allen bolts for installation, and something they did is they also marked the packaging for driver and passenger, which I thought was pretty cool, because then you don't screw them up putting them on, because you have your tap here already for your EGT gauge, and there's actually one on each, so you can run EGT gauges on both sides. Now, has the HSP logo machined into it, and they are very different from the factory exhaust manifolds. They're a lot thicker and they're a lot beefier, but you can just tell that the flow pattern of these manifolds is way better than the stock design. So we're going to try to install them. I mean, it's pretty cloudy out today, but it was raining earlier. It stopped raining. We're getting the remnants of whatever that hurricane is, but it did stop raining. So I already kind of started doing this one. I actually started last night pulling the wheel wells off, but it was just too late. So have one of them right there. And I'll tell you what, this here is the best tool for pulling off them push pins. If you have a tool like this, whether it be metal or plastic, and I got a couple different ones, but this thing is the best for snaking it up in there in that little push pin. Just get behind that pin, pop it out of there. Oops. I don't usually work with a camera in my hand, but let me see if I get you a better angle there. So that thing gets in there and pops that out of there, pops that clip right out. Your exhaust manifolds, stock. So you have 3 bolts on the up pipe. You have a bracket that holds the down pipe in. A lot of guys don't even put a bolt in it, or they cut the bracket off. I actually cut my bracket off the stock up pipe and put it on to secure my down pipe, because I like it to be secured so it don't rattle. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bolts in the manifold itself. So I would suggest, if you've never taken your manifolds off your truck, I would let the motor run and heat up, because these things get rusty and they wind up snapping off in the head. So to save yourself the headache, I would either hit them with something, PB Blaster, Krell, some kind of freeze-all or something, or start the motor and run the truck and let them get hot, and then back them off while they're hot, being careful that you don't burn yourself. And then after they cool off, you can pull the manifolds off. Now mine, I've had them apart. I've had this motor out of this truck so many times now that, yeah, my bolts are tight, but they're not seized. And that's the big difference. So I started taking them out. Now I do have my EGT probe right there, and it runs up to a connector, so I can actually disconnect it from the connector, pull the whole manifold out, and then take it out of there and put it in the new one. They should slide out. I'm hoping that they don't get caught on the frame here, because I've never taken them out in the truck. So I'm hoping that they don't get snagged coming out of there, because there's bolts, but there's also studs. Now, I do have something I can back the studs right out with, but I'm hoping I can slide them out and then back the studs out after, because when you replace them, it's all Allen bolts, and Allen bolts will cover whatever holes that are in the new manifold. So I started taking them out. I got 2 more bolts underneath the bottom, and then I should be able to slide this thing off. So the passenger side is going to be a lot easier than the driver's side, because there's less stuff in the way to deal with. The hardest bolt you're going to have to get to is the one out of the 3 on the back side of that up pipe. So 2 of them are real close, and then 1 of them is in the back there. And it usually requires you to either unclamp the downpipe or take the downpipe off completely. I'm going to try to snake in there with some swivels and extensions and whatnot and try to leave the downpipe there. Maybe I'll have to unclamp it, and you can, turn it a little bit. See if I can get back here and pop that bolt off. Also, these 12-point number, I believe they're 12 millimeter 12 points in the up pipe, they tend to get rusted up inside here too. But the advantage you may have is that there is holes in the back, so you can spray in them holes, or like I said, start the truck, let the motor warm up, back off the bolts and the nuts and everything carefully, and then let the truck cool off and take the manifolds off. I've taken these off more than once, so for me it shouldn't be too bad. They were tight, but they're not tight to the point where they're going to snap. And in the beginning, when I did all the work, when I started doing the work to this truck and I took the turbo off, I had bolts break off from the up pipes in the back of the turbo. Luckily, Ryan's Diesel Service got them out for me when they refreshed my turbo. But that's what you got to deal with. So I'll try to set it up so you can see how I do it, see how they come out, see the new ones go in, and then we'll see how the EGTs are. My EGTs with this truck, having a 68 millimeter turbo, having 150 over injectors, they tend to run pretty high. Even with all the HSP piping that I have in here, you would think all the fuel with the CP3 and everything that I have in this truck, you would think with all that my EGTs would be lower, but I actually think it's causing my EGTs to be higher. So my truck runs consistently at around 1,000. On the highway between 11 and 1200. But the intention of me doing HSP manifolds not only is because everything on this truck is HSP, and not just because I want to be cool, it's also to see if it helps lower my EGTs. Originally I was going to do the PPE manifolds, but HSP brought theirs back out, and well, as you know, this truck is an HSP built truck, so everything in the motor on this truck pretty much is from HSP or is HSP, meaning that my injectors and my CP3 that are S&S diesel came through HSP. And yeah, so my valve covers, all that stuff came from HSP, and I wanted to keep it that way. Unfortunately, right now, HSP does not offer a compound turbo kit anymore, which kind of sucks because I wish I would have compounded this truck. And now I'm stuck with the dilemma where I want to stay with all the HSP merchandise, but I can't get an added turbo kit or a compound kit made by HSP for this truck, so it kind of sucks. So I am looking for one. If anyone has one out there that wants to sell one, let me know. Or if you want to, trade whatever, if somebody buys a truck and they don't want all the compounds or whatever, and they want to trade, I do plan on keeping my 68 in the Valley, so I'll probably add an S400 or some kind of S4 something as my atmospheric, but it's all about, the piping kit to be able to do it, to keep it with HSP, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, back to these manifolds. So 14 millimeter, 12 millimeter is what you're going to need. Couple extension swivels and whatnot, and just take your time so you don't snap them off, because like I said, if you snap anything off in the head, you're going to regret it. So I got the passenger side manifold off, and I didn't do anything on camera with it because I was fighting this thing to death. So the bolts that hold the up pipe wind up being behind the downpipe, and I tried, well, I actually did get them out of there without taking the downpipe off. I did have to loosen the clamp up top, and I did have to loosen the clamp on the exhaust, but I was able to finagle that third bolt that was in the back and the bracket out of there. So I did finally get that out. Now, one thing I am noticing about the new ones is the difference where if I go in the hole there, I want to say that's somewhere around 2.5 heavy. Well, the HSP one, when I go in the hole, let me move it over a little bit, but when I go in the hole in the HSP one, it's more, there's probably another 1/4 inch there at least. So I'm trying to get you exactly on that edge. It's about 2 3/4 there. And then on the edge of the stock, it's about 2.5, 2 5/8. So number one, they are definitely deeper. And you can just look inside and see it's definitely made for the airflow as opposed to the stock one. I mean, they're hard to see the differences, but there's definitely a difference there. You can definitely tell. You can also definitely tell that this thing will accept the heat better than that. So as the motor heats up, this will probably dissipate more heat than the stock one will. So I'm going to take the heat shield off the stock one and get you a better comparison. So here's your stock comparison versus your HSP comparison, and you can see how much thicker that is. So there's definitely full follow-through flow right there in that port right here, where this one has more of a narrow port on it. You could definitely see that makes a whole world of difference. This is for the oil dipstick, and I love that they did that. So that's what this cutout is for, but they just took a whole bunch of material for that. HSP just managed to CNC or mill it out, or however they did it. So yeah, there's definitely a difference. Like, you can notice the differences in them. It's hard to see the stock one, but you can definitely notice that the HSP ones are way beefier. So I'm ready to run these bad boys. Want to be fun. So another nifty tool that I got is to extract the remaining studs that were left in from how the stock manifolds bolt up. There's a couple studs that go in there, and there's like one there and there's like one on that side, but they get extracted because the HSP manifolds have all Allen bolts. So this little thing right here, and I'll put it on camera how it works, is what I'm going to use to take the studs out. So the way this bad boy works is it reverses. So every time you go to loosen it, the jaws tighten. You have to put an adjustable wrench here and you'll tighten that, and the more you tighten that, the tighter it gets. And as you're reversing the stud and holding that, the tighter everything gets and it breaks it free. So, and then to get it off, you just got to redo the loosening process and back it off. Kind of hard to do with one hand, so. Alright, studs are out, gaskets are out, manifolds are off. I'm going to clean a little bit of stuff up on there. Looks like there was a little bit of oil that got down there somewhere. I don't know how. I want to investigate it, but it's either oil or fuel. Hard to tell, but I'm going to clean it up, investigate that a little bit, and then from there we can slide the new gasket in, and we'll slide a gasket in there, and we'll start putting that new manifold on. Alright, so the driver's side is in, and you can see all the wires I got in the way. But I also had to take out my steering link from the rod to the box. I had to take out my hot side intercooler pipe. And that was pretty much it. And then just get in there. It's a pain in the butt, but you just got to get in there. So, on the other side of the truck, I had to disconnect my downpipe. I just loosened the clamp from the turbo and kind of rocked it around. I had to drop the exhaust from the downpipe. I had to pull the bolt from the oil dipstick, which is already in a tight spot anyway, but I had to do that. And this side, you get a little bit more room to play around. I didn't have to take the intercooler piping out, so that wasn't too bad. But be careful, because my gasket did slip down and hit the hot wire on the starter. So it kind of arced because I didn't disconnect the batteries. You might want to disconnect your batteries doing it, but aside from that, it went in pretty smooth. Wasn't nothing crazy. Just getting the studs out of the head, the old studs, because you're using all Allen bolts. If you can see that, you're using all, even in the up pipe. I'm gonna try to get you a shot of that. You're using the Allen bolts in the up pipes too, and they give you 6 more. I guess if you want to use Allen bolts in the top of the up pipe into the turbo, but I'm not pulling all that out. I already have my bolts in there, but if I ever did, I would use them. So, yeah, that's what you come out with. Now, I'm going to start the truck and see if there's any difference in the sound, because I'm kind of wondering if it's going to make a difference in the sound. I'm going to hook up my exhaust back to the downpipe first. Then I'm going to start the truck and see if it sounds any different. Here we are, all installed. True test is that EGT number, so take it for a ride in a little bit and see what it does. We're in the truck. I've been driving it around a little bit, and I wanted to get some quick driving video in of what the EGTs are now that I did the manifolds. And I can tell you, before, my EGTs would be a lot higher. I mean, right now I'm cruising at like 55, and you can see my EGTs are around 780, 770, 780. When I crank on it, they would hit pretty high. I've seen 1400 or better, but right now they stay steady around 1000, 1100. They're not too bad. I mean, for the setup on this truck, you gotta expect that you're gonna have some kind of higher EGTs than a stock number. So, but aside from that, the truck seems to be running really good. I'm very happy with it. Yeah, so that's what you get. Like, that's what you got. The manifolds are definitely worth it. They were definitely worth doing. 100%. If not 150%, they were worth doing. So, we'll get a little hit in real quick and see how it does. When it shifts through the gears, you can see how it drops down.